Today, I want to talk about the invisible force that shapes everything in your life. In 1978, an American futurist named Roy Amara offered a reflection on the progression of technology. He said, quote, "We tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run," end quote. This statement, which later became known as Amara's Law, was in many ways a reaction to the unique period of change that the technological world was experiencing in that given moment, in that decade. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, preceding that quote, there was this wave of great techno-optimism. Computers were these magical thinking machines that were going to come and solve all of the world's problems. Abundant nuclear energy was going to be too cheap to even meter. This felt imminent. But by the late 1970s, really the mid to late 1970s, that futuristic reality had not quite materialized. Computers existed, sure, absolutely, but they were clunky, they were expensive, and they were inaccessible to everyday, normal people like you or I. Energy, the nuclear energy point, was far from abundant, and it was far from cheap for the average consumer. For anyone who had lived through those periods of that techno-optimism from the 1950s and the 1960s, it was easy to stand in the reality that was the 1970s and feel, honestly, just disappointed. However, that surface-level view missed an important truth. Progress on the surface, what you could see, was not indicative of the compounding that was happening beneath it. Microprocessors were shrinking, costs were falling, networks were forming, software was developing. This was the insight that sparked Roy Amara's famous reflection. We overestimate the short-term effects and underestimate the long-term effects. And as you might have guessed, this reflection is about much more than technology. It's about the way that humans misjudge progress. You judge only on the basis of the visible, what you can see on the surface. You anchor on what you can see, touch, and feel. You're comfortable with linear cause and effect, an action and a reaction. Take an action, create a visible outcome. It's simple, it's clear, but it is entirely wrong. You think linearly, but most of life works exponentially. It benefits from compounding. Today's actions cannot be judged on the basis of today's results. They quietly stack under the surface for days, for months, for years, for even decades, and then suddenly they appear. So I might propose a slightly revised version of Amara's Law. I would say we tend to overestimate the effect of our actions in the short run and underestimate the effect of those actions in the long run. In Ernest Hemingway's famous 1926 novel, The Sun Also Rises, one of the characters is asked how he went bankrupt. His response, quote, "Gradually, then suddenly." Growth follows the same rule. It happens gradually, then suddenly. If you focus on the visible, you'll miss the invisible that tells the real story. The next time you feel stuck, ask yourself these questions. Number one, what's happening on the surface? What am I seeing? And number two, what's happening at the foundation? What am I feeling that's unseen? If you can pause and do that, you'll reclaim your perspective and play the game of life on an entirely different level. That's all for today's piece. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I hope you'll share it with others. If you did enjoy this, you're going to love my first book, The 5 Types of Wealth. It's a New York Times bestseller, and you can order it now on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. As always, until next time, stay curious, friends.